Well, good evening and welcome to yet another edition of the Island Stats Football Show. I want to welcome you. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me is Alicia Dill and Garrett Punchdill, co-host. We'll be missing Nikita Robinson this evening. But joining us, we have Dennis Zhu, who's over in the UK, Peter Ricards, who's also over in the UK, full of snow today, and Andre Pacheco, who is currently in Canada running a football program. Well, first of all, gentlemen, good evening. It's good to have these type of conversations because you guys have put yourselves out there to assist not only the younger group of Bermudians who are looking to achieve a professional contract, but also people that are not so young as well. And when I start talking about young, we talk about getting them out of here at the age of 13 and 14. But when you start getting some youngsters as age of 18 and 19, you guys are still looking out. But let's find out a little bit about each of you and what you're doing. And we'll start with you, Andre. Give us a sense of what you do and what your program in Canada does.
So we're based out of Niagara Falls, Ontario. So we have a soccer academy for both boys and girls, ages 7 to 18. I primarily coach the girls' teams. We have NCAA staff. We use, artificial intelligence equipment such as VO and Trace to get videos for the kids so they can send off to college scouts and professional opportunities. We're just trying to give all the opportunities that we didn't have growing up to the kids now, especially with all the technology available. So yeah, we train 3 times a week. We actually play across the border, and we're partnered with Celtic in the UK. We're partnered with Kenmore Soccer on the US side. So we find that the competition in the US is a bit more better, I should say, for scouting opportunities for US colleges and universities. So we travel across the border, obviously not now because of COVID, but we train in Canada and play in the US.
Okay. Well, good evening, Dennis. Can you give us a sense of where you're located and what you're doing with programs around your area over in the UK?
Yes, good evening all. I work for the Coventry City Sky Blues and Community. It's a community based side alongside with the academy. So my hat's a little bit full. They have me doing talent ID scouting in primary schools and secondary schools. So I basically go out and do sessions for free, trying to find hidden gems in and around the community. I also work in and around the schools with disability football and different things like that. But my main project is I'm the manager of the college. They have like a BTAC program. So I'm the head manager of the college program. So I lead all the scouting, basically do all the sessions all across the college program. And also I coach 2 teams on a Saturday for Sky Blues in the community, which actually has young Jakeem Jennings plays under me at the under 18 level. Is the Midland Junior Premier League. So we basically travel all through the West and Eastern Midlands playing against good level competitions. It's mainly lads that's trying to get academy aspirations or get it into, lower league, professional leagues and stuff. So, that's something I really enjoy doing as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Welcome. And Peter?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Earl. As you know, maybe 8.5, 9 years ago, we formed our academy in Bermuda, and our intention was always to provide opportunities for higher education through sports. So now that we've established a presence here in the UK, we've expanded our services throughout England and Europe. We have representation agreements with several high schools, universities, colleges, many of which offer top-level football programs. And there are also options for international standard rugby, basketball, swimming, and Olympic level track and field. Every child is obviously different, So our initial phase is a meeting with the parents and the student athlete to discuss their ambitions. Based on these conversations, we then recommend a few schools that we think would be best suited to the athlete. And we would then facilitate the interview process with the schools, with the coaching staff, with the administrators. We are registered with the English FA as an intermediary, and we have scouting certifications so that we're able to represent players, arrange for trials, negotiate contracts, etc. And through our mentoring service, we also support the athletes throughout their professional development.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before I get Punchy and Maceo to join in here, one of the things I picked up right away is that all your services are available to people worldwide, but mainly I see a lot of focus in the areas where you guys are living or residing in, because you see the need, and it's available. The assistance is available to help you breed and nurture some young people through development of and in Peter's case, all sports, but for you guys, football. Maceo, any first questions?
Most definitely. Welcome, guys, to the show. I make no secret about building bridges with our overseas Bermudians. I mean, we have Andre that's in Canada, Dennis that's well known in the local football scene from playing at Daniton, and Peter from his futsal side. So for me, it's important that we create this sort of network to what you guys do outside Bermuda and to bridge what we're doing in Bermuda to there. Because as you guys would have, I know as we get into the conversation, you guys are going to speak about the globalization and the small football world that we live in. So I've spoke to each one of these guys on an individual basis. Now is for us to try to figure out how do we build a bridge and a network for our people that are overseas. We're had previous conversations about scouting, scouting our players. I mean, we're just heard Dennis mention Jakeem Jennings. That's the son of Keith Jennings. Okay, how do we keep a track on him? And I know all the players that Dennis has worked with. Peter, I'm aware of the players that he's worked with and placed in certain areas. And I've had extensive conversations with Andre about the program that he's running in Canada, and how do we create these pathways. So that's my interest across the board with these guys, without getting into questions yet, is how do we better utilize our resources? I know football wise that we have these resources. I've seen them. How do we figure out how to collectively better utilize the resources to grow our international brand?
Evening, Punchy. Any opening words?
Hi. Oh yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Happy New Year to you both. Hope you all are safe, good. As you know, this show is a beginning show also. Our country is trying to find, which I hope the show helps, find the questions that have not been answered for so long. What I'm very happy is that the more of us from Bermuda that are traveling and being put in positions like you guys are in, it's great for this country. I would just ask you if you give me, the three of you give me maybe some history on what got you on this journey, where you are now. And the other question is, as Maceo, I'm just adding to what Maceo says, what do you think we have been lacking in this country in terms of whether it's organization, are we still not organized enough? And so if you can answer maybe the first question, you give me a small, maybe some about how you guys get started in your journeys.
Yeah, we can start with you, Peter.
Sure, sorry, just unmute my mic.
No problem.
I was actually working at Belco, and a friend of mine asked me to join him. He was coaching at Devonshire Cougars at the time. Jamel Salam was coaching at Cougars. He asked me to give him a hand. So I went out with I think we were doing under 9s at the time, and I absolutely fell in love with coaching. Bounced around to a few different clubs, Valencia, BAA, but I always found that I didn't think that football was really serving the technical development of the player. And then I discovered futsal through a Brazilian friend of mine visited the island. He was coming down for a vacation, but I knew that he had a coaching background. So I asked him to put on a clinic since he was going to be on the island. And he introduced me to futsal. And right away, I saw the rate at which it developed the technical skill, particularly of the young player. So we established our academy, and I know, Mr. Dill, I think your grandson was with us for a bit.
That's right.
And
That's
I
right.
remember seeing you sitting there on the sidelines watching. Many a time I wanted to come and introduce myself and speak to you because I knew of your football background. I just wanted to get your opinion on what you thought. But for me, we take the players into our academy from 4 and 5 years old, and we focus on technical development, speed of play, movement off the ball. So when they reach 11, 12 years old, we start to have the discussion with the families about transitioning overseas for opportunities of higher education and sport. And we think that that's the ideal age to start thinking about making that move at 11, 12, 13 to get you in the environment, so that you get used to the homesickness, as Earl, as you and I talked about the weather, let's be honest, because it is different, but also the intensity, the physicality that you're going to have to get used to and the demands on you as a young player. So the sooner you are actually in that environment, the better it's going to be for your long-term development. To answer your question on where I think we may be lacking in Bermuda, that's a difficult question to answer. I would say that we need to be exposed to more international opportunities, especially our coaches. You can't take a team away for a week, 10 days, and think that you've put yourself in a greater position to have more knowledge on the game. Yes, it helps, but I think you need to immerse yourself in a higher standard for a significant length of time, a month, 3 months, 6 months, if you can. We need to see what that higher standard looks like. We need to know what to demand of our players. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't experienced it, you can't take part in a coaching course. You can't watch a YouTube video and think you're going to figure it out. You have to immerse yourself in it. You have to be around it each and every day so that you know how to explain that and how to pass that knowledge on to your players.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Yes, good evening again, guys. I'm Punchy. How you doing? Nice to see you. For myself, DeVar Boyles was very instrumental in my journey. Having a strong family background in coaching from my dad and my uncle Gabby Hard, who just passed. But DeVar and Jomar pretty much just took me under the wing. DeVar saw something in me from when he coached me and always pushed me to take coaching to a higher level. So when Jacques Cavazier came down and afforded the UEFA C project, he jumped right on it. Himself and Troy Harvey actually, sponsored myself and Jomar and other coaches from Dandytown to go on that journey. And that really opened up my eyes to the fact that to push myself to actually coach full time. And the word evolution always plays back in my mind. That was something that Jock always hit on, bang on with, was about evolving yourself. And I felt after coaching at Dandytown for a 5-year stint under Jomar, we won every trophy. I just thought the next level for myself and for my sons and nephews that I brought out here was to come try it in the UK. Luckily, with help from DeVar and other people around me, giving me proper resumes and speaking highly of me, I was able to volunteer at a club first, and then I ended up taking my level 2 out here. It's the FA level 2. Now on that journey, the guy that actually assessed me is now my boss, former Coventry City star David Boost. And right away, he just loved my passion and my drive, and that word evolution came out again. So as he got to meet me and recommended me for a job at Sky Blues and Community, that's where the first thing he said to me was he sees that I could be an academy coach and all that, but he saw something else in me to help inner city youth and the same drive that I had to bring. He likes some of my son, Young Dennis, Tiaje Smith, Edre Moore. These guys was all young Bermudian internationals. But that thing, what he was talking about earlier about age, I think if I would have got them out here, say at 11, 12 years old, that they would have probably be at much further in the development, definitely would have been academy stars, but they came in at the 15, 16-year-old age bracket. So there's a little behind. But I like that Maceo reached out about this, because that's my thing about where Bermuda's lacking. I think the fact that we're British, we should find some way to have, a training facility or some halls in there, because we have some very gifted and young, talented lads, both home and both abroad, that we really don't know a lot about because parents are making sacrifices to push them and doing so. That was a lot of my motivation to come out here to try to, help out as much young guys to just get seen, because that's the biggest thing. If you can put them in an arena to not only just succeed as players too, but I like the side of what I'm doing, that I'm helping lads become coaches, referees, physios, because of the education network that they have, and it's a few Bermudians that came through the program. But like I said, the thing that I think we're lacking most is, for one, having an open platform to people that's not just in the association. I think we need to realize that myself and Andre and all the big guys are actually away, putting ourselves in an arena where we actually can be used to aid football. And I think, like, prime example, I can bring up any from under 18s down, host them at Coventry City's academy, where these boys could be getting coached by academy coaches, playing in make-up matches, whatever. You had the boys from Ilkeston the other day. Now we have international breaks. It affects us out here. They could call me up and say, look, DJ, it's about 10 guys out there. Why you can't just take them, and I'll take them and put them in a mini training camp. I can assess them and send reports back to Kyle and to the likes of every Bray Jones, whoever's dealing with these young players' age groups, So that's why I put myself in this arena, because that's what I would like to effectively bring to Bermuda one day.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Andre?
No problem.
Good evening, gentlemen. I've always been involved in football. My dad was the president of Vasco during the Vasco Volcanoes era. They won the Triple Crown, so I was always at every game as a youngster. Fell in love with the game when I was at BAA with my coach, David Neisler, rest his soul. He just knew how to talk to players and get them motivated, and that's what really made me fall in love with the game. Went to university, played in England for the university team, went to university in Canada, and I've stayed ever since. But I wanted to get more involved and help, especially Bermudians, try to get overseas more. So I was actually the first FIFA licensed agent in Bermuda a few years ago. And I believe now there's a few more. That I was helping players like Leo Burgess, Casey Castle, and a few more players, trying to get them to more obscure leagues that Bermudians don't necessarily go to, like England, or I was sending players to Portugal, Iceland, and other smaller leagues just to get their name out there. So it was becoming an agency. I'm sure, some of you know, it's very political. So I wanted to get back to where we all fell in love with the game at the youth level. So I decided to pursue my coaching badges. I did a course in Bermuda with Jacques. He was a great mentor. I opened up an academy last year called Niagara International Football Club. And in our first year, we actually got 6 girls NCAA scholarships. So we have a pretty good track record. So my opportunity or my goal is to provide as many opportunities, not just for Bermudians, but people wherever we are. So if I'm in Canada, I want to help the Canadian youth just as much as I want to help the Bermudian youth. You know, our motto here is we provide a professional experience at the youth level. We have a strength and fitness coach. We have NCAA coaches who can answer questions to parents about what it takes to become a college athlete. You know, for players going on trial at a professional club, I can give them, you know, tips and insights on what to look for in a contract negotiation, things like that. In terms of what I think Bermuda is lacking in terms of, you know, getting more players out, might be, I don't want to say like attitude, but maybe more motivation. I feel like players, if they sign for a professional club or a semi-professional club, they think that, okay, that's it, I've made it. You have to keep working because you never know if your contract's going to get cut. New coach comes in. It's the same with college. You know, new coach comes in, they might not like you, your contract's finished. You have to be working harder than the other person in the room or on the field. I think mentally, we're not there as players. I think mentally we need to be stronger and be sort of toughen up to the word no, or you're not good enough. You know, if I shut down every time I heard no, I wouldn't be in business. So I think mentally is probably one of the biggest things that I think Bermudian players need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Hey,
we'll be
Peter,
right back.
sorry about that. But Peter, yeah, I did come to a lot of your sessions and they were great. Thank you very much. I wanted to join in, but I thought I'd take a back seat. Yeah, I let my grandson take over that. He can do that. I'll just watch. And I really did enjoy your session too. Trust me, I did.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back after this commercial break with more from these coaches overseas.
Perrier water has been renowned worldwide for over a century and a half. Collected from a pristine ancient mineral water spring in the south of France, originally bottled in a distinctive green pear-shaped bottle, and distributed in Bermuda by John Barry & Son Limited, our foremost beverage distributor, refreshing Perrier is the champagne of mineral waters. Try Perrier water in bold, natural fruit flavors with no added sugar and 0 calories. This month, we're featuring peach, strawberry, watermelon, orange, pink grapefruit, lime, cucumber, and regular Perrier water in cans. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
Welcome back. Dennis, I want to ask you, because you made mention that in the community you're in and in your coaching capacity or your scouting capacity, you work with kids with disabilities as well. So there's no shortage of or nothing holding anyone back from actually taking that step of getting into the program. Is that correct?
No, not at all. You see, a lot of the kids, because we go and do a lot of voluntary work in schools and after school clubs, and we do a lot of support work in the education field, we take on kids from all walks of life. It's really what's kept me there. Like I said, I've been asked to coach at the academy and stuff, but working with the inner city kids, you know, seeing one, they maybe have 1 in 1,000 of a chance of making it, and to see 7 or 8 get into academy structures from all walks of life, that's been a real reward.
Yeah. Alicia?
I mean, these conversations are absolutely rewarding. Punchy and myself had conversations about what things that resonate with us, of not just taking a group away for 10 days to a tournament, but immersing yourself in that. You know, Marco Punchy himself, you know, spent 2 years in Bournemouth, and it was a whole different eye-opener being in Bournemouth in a professional environment and what you learn and what you get exposed to. We also have a conversation around have our kids that have been exposed to this from young age, is that exposure greater than what we can offer from a coaching standpoint here in Bermuda with our limited exposure? You know, what do you guys feel about that piece? I know our kids are always reluctant to speak up as to how they feel about how we're implementing football here, but what are you guys' opinion about their exposure when they come back to Bermuda and don't see us doing what they've been exposed to?
Yeah, Peter.
I think the best way I can answer that is to share an experience that a young man that transitioned out here in August has had. We helped him secure a place at a top-rated football school. He's 13 years old. I was lucky enough to attend his very first training session. His technical skills, as I mentioned, very strong. Came through our futsal academy, so he was playing in a center midfield role in his scrimmage. First touch was excellent, lift his head up. He saw the pass in front of him, but with all due respect, I guess that laid back Bermudian mentality, he felt that he could dribble through the midfield. Didn't take a look over his shoulder. So 6 foot tall Nigerian player, Usain bolted him, sprinted him down, robbed him, counterattack, scored. And he's kind of looking around like, what just happened? And for me, it stuck. I said, well, those are the things that it's going to have to learn and really, really quickly. So fast forward a few months, he's applied himself to such a point where he's been promoted to his U16 team. And on his U16 team, within that program, there are 4 players that are in Leicester City's academy, 2 that are in Wolves Academy, and 1 that's in Nottingham Forest Academy. So this 13-year-old young man who just a few months ago was playing football in Bermuda now has these players in and around him as role models, but also, players that he can look at and say, what do I need to do to get to that level at 13 years old? And I just don't think, obviously, that's not something he's going to experience on the island.
Andre?
I agree. I think, what the kids are exposed to in a professional environment, we don't have that system set up back home on the island. And I'm not sure what avenues and what processes we can, look at to maybe facilitate maybe come back home training camp, stay on top of your game type of thing while you're back home for the holidays. Or I think, like, taking this for example, here in Ontario, Canada, we're shut down. We're in lockdown. We're under a stay-at-home order. We have been for 30 days. And during the first lockdown, we were shut down for, I think, 3 months or whatnot. And the kids' first touch, their passing, their reading of the game, just everything went downhill over 3 months. So imagine a player who's set up at a professional environment, comes back home for, let's say, 2 weeks for a Christmas break. They're going to be so far back because it's at a higher level. And I think that level needs to be maintained on island as well. Like I said, I'm not sure how best to pursue those avenues, but I think a professional setup needs to be done back home.
Yeah. Dennis?
For me, it's a lot boils down to facilities. Like, we're talking about what exposure looks like. How we are exposing our players, better served, by not giving them, lack of not giving them the right facilities. I say, for instance, like you said, a story when Jakeem first came to me over her. Believe it or not, having a better surface was harder for him to adapt to than what he was used to in Bermuda, because the speed of the ball, the conditions, the weather, everything. So we need to start now. It's nice having one PFA field, but we need to find a way to get any facilities better in Bermuda. So when these boys are going on their journeys, they're more prepared. What does the success look like to our boys? Back home, we only saw competitive football, 14 years old. Where when we were younger, Maceo, myself, we was playing many minors, units. So what are we showing our boys with hunger and desire? What does success look like? And I think that's a model we have to change in Bermuda. It cannot be just making it to North Village and first team. We have to tell our young kids, you don't ever want to play for North Village's first team. What success looks like is what McKees did. Yeah, what young Nathan done the other day. That's the model we have to present to our kids and make them believe that it can happen. And not just falling on to parents, but from the associations, from other private entities, like what Peter's doing and what Andre is doing. We just have to find a model to show kids, look, this is what success looks like. That's a big thing for me.
Bunch?
Yeah, well, thank you guys for such info, such information. As with so many of us now living overseas, doing work overseas, being involved with professional environments. And like I told Maceo when I first went to Bournemouth, I was just amazed at what I didn't know, what I found out about coaching. The whole attitude towards the organization of the game. How do you get a 7-year-old to play good organized football like he's playing at 13 years old? And so I used to have these discussions when you come back from my break, and I'll be headstorm and say, look, you guys, we got to do this. This is what's going on. I just found here that even though I'm speaking to people, they're not really taking it full. They're not really serious. Let me see if another term. Let me see if I can rephrase this. They will say, okay, yeah, that's very good, but nothing has been implemented. And Peter, the reason I'm going to bring this full circle now, that's why when I came to watch my grandson with you, I was just, wow, this is what's really needed in this country. I think, Dennis, you're absolutely right also, if I can make a comment about that, about our lack of getting these guys prepared. And just a little bit of history. I saw guys that came, and my grandson came to Bournemouth for trials. And right away, like you said, Peter and Andre and Dennis, I could tell you when he's 13 years old that when I saw the three, they came from Bermuda for trial, I said, I'm not gonna make it. I mean, not that I wasn't a great coach enough like that. I could figure out that the strength, the speed, the pass, and the movement. It was like, wow. So I agree with you all. And another statement, last but not least, facility-wise, Dennis, very important. I made a joke too when my first year coming back here for the summer. I said to my brother, my grandson wouldn't even be allowed to play on North Litchfield if it's in England. He wouldn't be allowed. It just wouldn't happen. I was like, whoa. So I learned that. But you guys, I'm just saying, the question I want to ask again is, what are we going to do to connect? Because some of you guys in good positions now. Some of you guys, I'm so happy for you all. I keep referring to the FA Association. Have they ever contacted you guys? And I'm going to make this clear. Have you ever been in contact? Have you been contacted by anybody in Football Association?
No.
Well, they all shook their
Okay.
head.
Andre, have you?
but
I'm sorry, I got to put that question to you.
Yeah,
I'm just going to put the question.
And I agree. But this is the other thing, and I think Maceo would have to agree with this as well. You have a coaches association, and
Yes.
all these guys at one point in time have been a part of coaching with each other. So if we're going to sit around and wait for the association to do it, then why not the guys that already have these guys making contact with Dennis and saying, Dennis, I at St. George's have this young man who I think will be quality. Can you kind of sit down or Zoom or however and talk to the parents of what is possible, and or Peter and or Andre, to actually move the process forward? We can't sit around and wait for times of waiting for someone else to do something. It's over. We know each other. Why aren't we looking at each other's communication to ensure that we move forward? If the association's 5 years behind, then they're 5 years behind. But each of these guys touch each other at some point in time. Maceo, you were able to reach out to these three because you've actually had communications with them through the Coaches Association. So is there some way where the coaches can link up if they see a talent or they get asked by a parent, that they can actually forward information to individuals?
Well, let's be fair with the whole concept of our club system, the Bermuda Coaching Association, and the BFA. Let's accept in Bermuda, we're quite young in collaboration and cooperation. We're very young in it.
Yes.
We're figuring out how to move, and I use the word, we're figuring out how to move across our tribal wars, and to share our resources. So even, let's take me and Dennis, how many battles that we probably had as coaches against each other, or player, or even banter, coming from different clubs. Now in maturity, we're getting to a level, well, how do we cooperate to bring bring our new generations through.
Right.
At the end of the day, we still need the leadership from the Bermuda Football Coaching Association. We still need the leadership from the BFA to bring this all home for Bermuda. So that everything that we're doing is for the future and the benefit of Bermuda in our future. So maybe it becomes a part of Scout Network. What does our Scout Network look like? So take Andre that speaks about girls program. Okay, how do we connect them to the girls program at the BFA to create pathways for our girls, to create training opportunities for our girls? Take Peter, his futsal piece. How do we connect that futsal piece to create the platform for the development? We had Dennis Brown on last week, where he also implemented a futsal piece that gives technical work and technical skills. How do we build a whole holistic thing that we're all working together for the future development of our players? And we're using each resource, we're using each resource. And the word that I always use in this is being inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Being inclusive and sharing information, because no more football's a secret anymore. We can go on the internet, we can go everywhere. I mean, I'll give you a story. In 1958, when Brazil first won the World Cup, they knew nothing about Pelé, and they couldn't scout him. So they couldn't even prepare to deal with him. They knew nothing about Brazil. Now we know about everybody, right? We can scout them, we can do it. So we just have to be collective now. That's the word I always use. And it doesn't have to be, you're right, it doesn't have to be only the BFA driving it. It has to be all of us driving it, the media driving it, the government driving it to force us to collectively collaborate to grow our sport and to grow football.
Yeah. We're going to take another commercial break, but I'm going to get you guys to answer this one question when we come back. And that is, how does one reach out to you guys to actually start a conversation, and what that conversation would look like in the fields that you guys are utilizing right now? We'll be right back.
This month, we're featuring a range of infant and baby care products from Hello Bello, a company started up by a husband and wife team who were inspired to meet the challenges arising from the often surprising, not to mention messy, experiences that came with the territory known as parenting. The couple behind Hello Bello know that being a parent is uniquely demanding, and their mission is to bring you premium products at gentle prices. Try Hello Bello Apple Blossom Baby Lotion, Lavender Shampoo and Body Wash, Flushable Wipes, Diaper Rash Cream, Lavender Bubble Bath, and more. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Dennis, I'll let you answer that first. How could one reach out, and what are the initial conversations? Because you guys have to be honest and open to any parent and or player having a conversation about making this next step.
Yeah, well, the first thing, they gotta be open-minded. Like we was talking about earlier, coming from Bermuda, where a lot of things are handed to us and they come by pretty easy. Like in relation to, you're playing on a team with your mates, you know what home you're going to, you know what meal you're gonna have. They need to be open-minded to change. Again, I'll go back to that word Jocko is bang on, evolution. You have to be open, because you could leave Bermuda, a 20-goal scoring attacking midfield, and you come out here and you get transformed into a left back. So your change and regime changes. What demands the action for you change. You got to get up and down the pitch now. So the first thing when I have a conversation with players that I've helped come out here is how open-minded they have to be to what's about to change in their life.
Peter?
Yeah, for us, when when parents do contact us and ask us about the opportunities out here, similar to Dennis, one of the first conversations we have is being realistic about the expectations, the intensity here, the speed of play, the physicality, especially if you're going to end up in a lower league team, a lower league academy. The game is very, very physical. I think the higher up the pyramid you go, some of these teams are implementing a more European style, so your technical skill comes into play a bit more, but it's still, no matter where you go, it's very, very fast. So we have that conversation with the parents, with the player. What are your expectations? What are you really looking for? And it's difficult because, as I said, if you haven't experienced this environment, you just don't know. I think we have a bit of an advantage with our academy, with the intensity that we train at. And we also have had the opportunity to work with these players. So if we are speaking with a parent and a player that's been to our academy, they have a bit more, I would say, of an idea of what it's going to be like here. So if someone reaches out to us that we're not familiar with, we would suggest a bit of an assessment with us so that we can work with you and give you an idea of what it's like out here. But also, if we're recommending a player to a school or to an academy, the parents have to understand that that's also our reputation on the line. So if I am helping a player, a parent, transition here to the UK, I want to make sure that they're going to go in and represent themselves and Bermuda very, very well. Because like I said, if somebody comes out here on the recommendation of CP Sports Group and it's an absolute disaster, that school, that club won't want to work with us again. So that's very, very important that they're assessed before they even reach here.
And Andre?
I agree with everyone being open-minded and realistic. We say there's a level for everyone. It just, you have to be realistic of what your level is or how hard you want to work to get to the next level. We also like to, we speak with the parents all the time, but we also like to speak with the players as well, because, mom and dad are saying one thing, but the kid might think or say a different thing. So it's good to make sure that the players take responsibility on their own as well. So, if a player has an issue or the initial contact has been made with the parents, we always want to see the players take the second initiative and be responsible young players and contact the coaches, get feedback and react positively or not negative, but respect the critique and the feedback. Like Dennis said, being open-minded is a big, big thing when players contact us, or even parents. We have on a daily basis, parents contact us, oh, my kid's the next, Messi. We have them for a tryout, and we have to be really brutally honest with the players and the parents. So I think just being open and honest and being realistic is the biggest thing when contacting someone.
Yeah. Punch?
Yeah, I want to direct a question to Andre. You were speaking about the women's soccer. You were coaching young girls.
Yes.
Am I correct? Okay.
Yep.
It just seems like an explosion like in the United States. I see the Canadian national women's team and the American national team. And to give you a story, when I was about 10 years ago, I was going on summer coaching programs with David Baskin in Pennsylvania. And he had told me that pretty soon the United States women's football is going to explode. Is that what's happening in Canada also?
Yes.
Is that what's going on there? And what is the state of the schools? Because he took me around to the schools to show me all that.
Yeah.
What is actually Canada? What has Canada done?
Well, it's funny. Canada has more kids registered in soccer than any other sport, and whether it be hockey, basketball, and majority of that is women's soccer. And you're right. There's a huge boom in women's soccer. We actually took my U16 and U18 was last to Portugal. We trained in Sporting Lisbon. We played 3 games, and we absolutely, we dominated all the games. They're very technical, but the coaches loved our physicality, our speed, our pace of play. The game is growing in Europe, but Europe is probably about 20 years behind where Canada and US are, because in North America, the girls have opportunities for scholarships at NCAA. And I think that's what drives them, especially in the US. Every girl I talk to that comes into our program, what is your goal? NCAA Division I. That is their be all and end all. But they don't realize that there is a path beyond college. When we went to Portugal, 6 of our girls got selected for tryouts to come back in April, but the pandemic hit with big name clubs. And now that we're using artificial intelligence cameras such as Veo or Trace that the professional clubs are using, these girls can actually get themselves out to these clubs and like, hey, take a look at my video. So we actually just had 4 girls get interest from European clubs who can pay a salary, can pay for the players' education. So I think within the next 10 years, soccer as a whole is going to be big, and probably not at the same level where guys and girls are getting paid the same, but it will be getting very close. That gap is going to be shortened.
Mace?
I mean, just in this conversation, we've got serious intellect in this conversation to talk about football, you know, and people in this conversation that are exposed. And my challenge always in my football journey, whether even at North Village, is to build a bridge to the evolution of the game and the next level of the game. So being involved in this conversation, you know, is the first step to us building a bridge. And what I can share with you is that I'm also involved with the BFA from my position on the coaching association as building comprehensive cultural coaching method, meaning that, you know, CONCACAF is embarked on creating a CONCACAF license similar to what we have in a European license, you know. So I'm having great fun interacting with some of the bigger figures in Bermuda to coming up with what's relevant, a coaching syllabus, a coaching manual for Bermuda. And again, that's first level collaboration within the BFA and the BFCA. So now what's important, how do we take those conversations and share it with people like you guys outside, that are outside, and create these pathways, you know, because let's be realistic right now as we're talking about our women and our men. And I always say this, in 2026, our CONCACAF region is getting 8 spots to the World Cup. 8 spots to the men's World Cup. Right now, our CONCACAF region has 3. We can get 8. It's realistic that we can go to a World Cup. But for you guys and for all of us, all our listening orphans, we have to build a foundation of a player to get to an international level. And we have to be able to build that foundation, that international level here in Bermuda, so when they transition, they're not behind. So you guys are all seeing, Peter, you just talked about a 13-year-old kid that transitioned, and as skillful as he was, he was behind, but he had the opportunity. Uncle Panchi, you would have seen your grandson, my son, you know, being in Bournemouth, them having to catch up. So the question for you guys, and I'm gonna load this question. It's gonna be a loaded question because in my head, we can build a foundation here that when we transition outside, because we do have to transition outside, we do have to move outside to get exposure and learn. What do you think we need to do to collectively build that foundation so when our kids transition, they're not behind, they're on par, or even ahead?
I saw Peter unmute, so he's ready.
For me, just listening to the conversation and, you know, Maceo knowing your background, Mr. Dill knowing your background, we have some great ideas here, but these, you know, when these ideas are being put forward, they need to be implemented. These ideas need to be considered, and we need to take a chance and see if it works or if it doesn't work. You know, Maceo, as you know, I'm a great supporter of Leeds United. So Marcelo Bielsa is currently our coach, and he said that a man with new ideas is considered a madman until his ideas triumph. So Maceo, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, you approached me about assisting you or providing my feedback on what would be a good model for youth development. And you put together what I felt was an amazing document between yourself and 2 other local coaches. And, you know, I followed up And I asked, whatever happened to that document? And you said that it didn't go anywhere. So, if you're consulting with guys like with, myself, Andre, Dennis, and these ideas are not being used, it builds a bit of frustration. To speak for myself personally, it builds a bit of frustration if our ideas are not being considered and, implemented.
I agree. Dennis?
Yeah, for me, sharing is caring. Uncle Punchy probably wouldn't know this, but Maceo, I'm gonna have to give a lot of respect to, and my days of coaching at Dundee Town with Joe Ma. You believe it or not, almost every Thursday, Friday night he found his way around Dundee Town. And you know what I'm saying? He always had good things to share about us. But the thing I really took from you, Maceo, back then was you asked me and Joe Ma a question one time, and you said, well, what is a Dundee Town player? What's the ID of a Dundee Town player? I think that's what we have to develop in Bermuda as a whole. What does the model Bermudian footballer look like for every position? What mentality are we looking for in a model Bermudian footballer? Because over the years, we've had abundance of talent, but mentality, how far do they go? Like the FA have a model out here, right? It's a four-corner model. It's tactically and technical, psychological, social, and physical. How do we know what a Bermudian player is matched up against just those four corners? I think that's something that has to be a model that goes all through all the clubs. It's time for us to share exactly what we want as a Bermudian and what we're looking for in our youth that's coming through. As opposed to, for me, one thing that's always stunned me is that we have such great footballing minds like a Kenny Thompson, like a DeVar Boyles, like a Andrew Bascom, Dennis Braun. They've never worked under the same umbrella at once for Bermuda. So looking at what Maceo is saying, myself as a young aspiring coach, should have had a model in place from those great minds I just said. Something that I'm aspiring to be as a coach. Okay, I want to be the next model Bermudian manager. But we don't have nothing like that. Everybody has their own style and what they bring, which is good. But I think we need to find a structure that we have an ID of what we're looking for. So now when these conversations go forward, like Peter said, if it doesn't even take a phone call now, we have so much ways to communicate. Maceo could shoot me an email and say, you know what, Dennis, Jakeem is everything I'm looking for in this position. But tell me how is he right now mentally? If I call him right now in a pandemic, can he come and meet me in Miami and go on down the CONCACAF and do a job mentally for me? And I can assess that for him. And these are the things I think we have to grow, not just in Bermuda, but for outside of Bermuda, so I can do that job, so Peter could do that, so Andre could facilitate that job. If that phone or that email comes, just real quick, I have 4 young Bermudian internationals living in my home. And I never once got an email or a contact to say, well, how they're progressing. What are these guys doing? But I had to register my details with the association. So if they need to contact these boys, they could get me. But I'm a coach as well. So why we never had that conversation to say, well, listen, I know Tiage scores 30 goals with his left. Has he started scoring any with his right? That's what we need to take him to the next level. So a big thing for me is we have to ID the model Bermudian player and the model Bermudian coach.
Andre?
I agree with Dennis 100%. I think Bermuda lacks an identity. I think Bermuda needs to create a philosophy for every position, what type of style, how do we counter press, what's our attacking method, what's our defensive method. Then we as coaches can implement strategies on how best to, find, okay, you need a left back that's quick, or you need a center midfielder that's a box to box type of player. I think as a whole, clubs, the BFA, Bermuda Football Coaches Association, I think we all need to come together and, define what is the Bermudian philosophy. Because now that sets out a roadmap where, okay, now we can pinpoint and work together. Okay, these two don't work together. Maybe we pull in this one from here, etc. Without a roadmap, we're just kind of winging things. And when you wing things, we all know it never works out.
True. We're going to take another commercial break and we'll be back with more of the Honest Ed's Football Show.
Go Macro started up at the beginning of the millennium in Wisconsin in the U.S. with macrobiotic farming in mind, motivated by the pursuit of health through balanced nutrition. Go Macro is a family-owned company dedicated to living and promoting a natural, whole food-based lifestyle. Like most whole food businesses, Go Macro is also dedicated to bringing you the flavors they love. This month, we're featuring Go Macro Vegan Organic Granola and Coconut, Sunflower Seed Butter and Chocolate, and Coconut Almond Butter Chocolate Chip Macro Bars. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. I know some people are doubting themselves and their young person's talent, but want to try to think about or have a conversation of moving to the next level. But in you guys areas where you guys are located, how for family's sake, moving to a different area, knowing what the area is like, or understanding or finding out what the area is like, how do you guys get that message across? Because there's a lot of people that will say, okay, I'm not going to go to where Dennis is because I'm uncomfortable in that part of the part of UK, or I don't want to go where, you know what I mean? So how do you guys in your fields reassure people of the area in which you're playing that they can actually develop and get their youngster to that next level? We'll start with you, Dennis.
Again, it goes back to that open-mindedness. We're not in this professional arena. We're not afforded the luxury to pick where we want to go. That's the first and foremost. Yes, as a young kid growing up, if you live in Manchester, you may go on a trial at United, you may go on a trial at City, you may go to trial at Liverpool, touch base. But 9 times out of 10, you don't have that decision to just make. So you have to be adaptable. Obviously, when you're moving and the club really wants to help you and stuff like that, they're gonna find you areas. They're gonna find you, the best opportunity for you to be as comfortable as possible. But again, it comes down to that mental part about everything. They say sacrifice is the true meaning of love. So if you're chasing that dream and you love what you love, you're going to sacrifice maybe the most comfortable environment at the moment and make the best of it to pursue your dreams. So again, being adaptable and open-minded is something that I couldn't knock on anymore to anybody who's looking to move, because like I said, I'm a staunch United fan, and even my dad and everybody was like, why you don't
And the world's a safer place again. United's on top.
Hello. You know what I mean? But so when I left Bermuda, my dad was like, why I can't see you not going to Manchester? What is it about Coventry? Now I go back. In my younger days, John Bird actually afforded opportunity for myself, Damon, me, Joey Rigo. A couple of us came out there on trials. And I always it just had a part of me. So for me, I was able to pick this place. I was able to pick Coventry and Comer. But, if my career takes me anywhere else, where there's a few other carrots out there dangling for me right now, then I'm going to have to adapt and make that move. And I just feel, like you've done it up a country to come out there for your grandchild. Maceo travels out there a lot. You know what I mean? Earl, for what you're doing right there, you ran out on a limb one day. And now Island Stats is global. Cannot thank you enough for bringing this platform to the world to show that Bermudians, we are about something. So again, adaptability is the big thing for me. You got to be prepared to go the extra mile and sacrifice.
Peter?
That's actually a really good question, because we get that from the parents. What area should I be in? What's the best area for me to be in? There's no real answer for that. You have to speak to the parents and see what it is they want. What are they comfortable with? Where do they want to be? For school, for instance, do they want a school that's located close to a city, or would they prefer somewhere that's kind of out in the country and quiet, where, you know, the approach may be that your child can focus on his education? Do you want to be in a football hotbed? You know, we're in Northampton, which is a big rugby town. We're close to the Midlands, which is Leicester City, Coventry, Birmingham, Wolves type of football area. So it's a good link up for football. But, you know, you have to speak to the parents. You have to figure out where it is they're going to feel most comfortable with. And then the service we provide is that, being here in England, we actually have the advantage of being able to jump in the car and go and look at the school for you and provide the feedback for the parent. You know, is it in a safe neighborhood? Some schools are not, let's be honest. Is it convenient for your child? So if your child does have downtime, can he walk into the town center and get his haircut or get his school supplies? You know, so those are the kind of things that we provide for the parents that are looking for that transition. And again, I'll touch on the weather. It's not Bermuda. You know, it was snowing here today. I've been here since March, and I've gone through all 4 seasons, sometimes in 1 month. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot of rain. There's a lot of cold, and you have to adapt. It does make a difference.
Yeah. Andre?
Yeah, I agree as well. Like, we always want to be safe, feel safe, and make sure that the kids are okay and all that. But, you know, there's times where you have to step out of your comfort zone. Like, some of the best players in the world came from nothing, playing in the streets, like always Brazilian players, you know, gangs everywhere, you know, favelas, very poor, but they got their heads down, they worked hard and overcame. I think we need to get kids more mentally prepared, parents more mentally prepared to, you know, just buckle down, do the work, and get on with it, you know.
I have a question for Dennis that I don't want to forget and wanted to be heard in this conversation. With the work that I do now, I've been able to interact with all sports and learn about all sports, and not just my biased perspective of football. You know, in all sports, I've seen the top performers come from what you're deeming as the inner city, the challenging background. I can speak of Tiger Woods, what type of background he came from. I can speak of the Williams sisters, you know, the challenging financial backgrounds they came from. I can speak of Michael Phelps, 12 gold medals of swimmer, what background and we all know Maradona, that background, you know, that he comes from to get to that top level. And I'm hearing you're going into this inner city to pick out those gems. What do we need to do better here in Bermuda to polish our gems from our inner city?
Oh man, for me, you know, the biggest.
I ask big questions for big people.
Yes. For me, it all goes back onto our education system. We have been lost for, I don't know how long Cedar Bridge has actually been open, but I think we've lost generations just through that systematic change in Bermuda. I mean, when you went back to when we went high school and primary school, you know, you had real rivalries. You know what I mean? You had a real camaraderie. It was a passion and a desire to represent your school, to represent your bench, to represent your alma mater. But and that was because in our schools we had more competition. You know, before I left Bermuda and my son was in middle school, I was wondering, like, every week, Darryl was playing the same school in football. Darryl was playing the same school in cricket. And so I went and asked the VAR at the time at the school. And I said, the VAR, why is this? He said, because it's actually no longer a league. It's actually no longer no structured sports in the schooling. You know what I mean? And that's something I think that's really, you know, took away from the gems that we was producing. You go back, Maceo, you would have had it. when the colleges used to come down for All-Star game. That was a big moment for us when we were young. I was fortunate enough to play in 2 All-Star matches. You know what I mean? And go down to Hamilton Princess and put on my Barkley Blazers and be lauded by coaches from all over North America, where our lads don't have that now. So it's nothing. They don't see nothing around the corner. And I think we need to get those platforms back in Bermuda, whether it be us helping to bring them to the UK, on Andre to Canada. But I think in our education system, in our school sporting, right, football and cricket, because you see the progress in rugby. The Beyond Rugby program is unbelievable. Even like the work that I do out here, the Premier League sponsors, about 75% of the work that I do in the Kick It Out program. And you look at England's captain, Harry Kane, is a direct product from that program. And I think we don't have enough of that in Bermuda. What Sean and David used to do back in the day with the camps and different things like that. I feel we need to be able to afford more of that in Bermuda. That's a major thing for me in our education system and within our club systems. We have to provide a better product for these guys to have something to look forward to. And I think that has gone away a lot with the change of our education system. That's my opinion.
Well, we're going to take our final commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up with these coaches who are putting on things to help develop and nurture our young men and women in football. We'll be right back.
We're spotlighting a food producer whose products are made with real wholesome ingredients, such as the highest grade farm-grown vegetables and certified organic free-range livestock with no artificial ingredients or preservatives, and no compromising on the painstaking quality control. Imagine Foods believe that higher quality ingredients, meeting high standards of purity, yield greater nutritional advantages and a more satisfying flavor. This month, we're featuring Imagine Foods organic roasted turkey, vegetable wild mushroom, and savory beef gravy. Lindo's, why going to place else?
Well, I know I've been very enlightened in finding out different things about you guys. But in closing, can you just give us an idea of how, if someone wanted to get in touch with you guys, just to have a conversation, just to pick your brain on what you can assist in that next step? We'll start with you, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to help in terms of the college system in the U.S., North America, etc., they can always reach me at andre@niagaraifc.com. I'll be happy to answer questions from parents and players.
Dennis?
Yeah, likewise. My life's an open book when it comes to sports, so I'm on pretty much every social network under my name. So you can reach me on Instagram, Facebook, on any of this. You can reach out to me, and then I will, pass on my personal information, and any hand that I can give, I will definitely.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, if any parents or players are interested in the schooling and football opportunities that we can help to provide here in the UK, please reach out to us on cpsportsgroup@gmail.com. And Dennis, same for you. If you're able to, give me a shout, please. I'd like to have a conversation with you. We are very, very close. Coventry's just up the road from me. So I think we could have a conversation maybe about how we can do something here together in the UK with the Bermudian-based UK players, so that they don't have to go back to the island for school breaks. We can do something with them here.
Any closing remarks?
Yeah.
Maceo?
Yeah, I like to close. I mean, my thing is always sharing and building bridges, right? And I make no secret about when it comes to sports. I actually want to win on the international stage. I really do. I want to win in football. I want to win in our region, and understanding winning what we have to do to develop ourselves from our foundation and share the holistic process. Peter, I've shared with you what Sean Goda's about to do with creating our academy in there, and how what you're doing interacts with what he's doing. And I'll be happy to connect Dennis to those things as well. So I hope for the listening audience in Bermuda that we start to see that we have the resources that are Bermudian, that we need to connect these resources, and we have the intellect. We have the intellect right across the board, but we have to connect these resources to have a collective agreement of how we're going to move forward. Now, we're speaking about football here, and Dennis, you guys brought up some very good points and identity. You know, me, Uncle Punchy has been talked about that a long time ago. I know even at my club, North Village, we don't really know our identity. I've been in a room with 5 different North Village people, and we all think of our identity differently. You know, some thought of it as winning, we win. Some thought of it as pretty football. Some, 5 different prominent figures thought of it differently. So we have to create our identity in football as Bermudians. So, you know, I'm really love this conversation with you guys, and keep up the work that you're doing, and you know, we're got to figure out how to build this bridge, you know, and this pathway for us to move our football forward.
Punchy, any parting words?
Yes, thank you so much, gentlemen. I agree with Dennis. I do say, well, all have you do, Andre, Peter, and Dennis. Networking is of utmost importance. We are only 21 square miles. It takes someone who's training for PAC, probably lives in the Paget area. So we had too many excuses for being not developed. This small country has to have a concept, which I always say, a concept, whether it's the Dutch concept, whatever. And I believe that the show we're heading in a direction that we start answering some questions that haven't been answered earlier. And with all these gentlemen, like you 3 gentlemen are doing so well, are doing, I know it's not easy, but at least I believe we're heading in the right direction. I'm so glad to have met you guys. Peter, it's great. Again, I really appreciate that. I am a Leeds supporter also. Andre, thank you very much for the information regarding the concept, because my niece is a co-chair for the girls football teams. Dennis, thank you. It's so glad to see you. I never got a chance to get up to Coventry. But anyway, I wish you all the best. And I think our country is headed, things are gonna jumpstart. So my thing is that thank you so much for being on and enlightening us. Thank you so much.
And in closing, I want to say to you guys, I'm encouraged by what you're offering and what you're able to do. Keep up the good work. There will be bumps in the road, obviously. There will be some that don't make it to the aspirations that you actually work with. But the fact that the opportunity is being provided, I think that's the right step in the right direction for not only Bermuda, but for you guys as well. So I want to, at the end of this, encourage you to keep up the good work and keep moving forward. And hopefully you get those contacts from Bermuda that actually allow you to do what you're able to do, that you're doing right now in your own fields, that would help assist Bermuda's talent be scouted, whether it be in Canada, USA, or the UK. So for that, I say good night.
Good stuff, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you, guys.